Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in today and coming back to listen to some inspiring possibilities. And I'm really excited that you have come and join us today. If this is your first time listening, hang in there because you are in for a treat. But if you are an avid listener to this podcast, I just want to thank you for, spending some time with us and giving us your ears and your heart. And hopefully you're getting a few things out of this podcast that can help you create possibilities in your life. But today I have a guest that, I think is going to really offer a perspective here that we may have not had actually in the past. But it's going to be a different way for you maybe to think through creating possibilities, but also what are some of the challenges that may come when you are trying to create something that may be outside of society's expectations or roles that they feel that you should have or shouldn't have. And how do you overcome some of those barriers to make your vision a reality and build, I'm going to say that in quotations, the life or business that you feel good about? And actually today, that's our show. I have a builder on the show, okay? And she has 20 plus years experience as a general contractor in a very male dominated industry. So guys, if you're listening, hopefully this will give you also some perspective to help your female friends out along the journey if they find themselves in a male dominated situation. But she's been featured in HGTV and GC Magazine. And she's also not only just builds things, places, homes, probably commercial. Have you done commercial, Dana?
I have some light, yeah.
All the things. She's built the things, okay? But she's also rebuilt her personal, professional, and financial life more than once. And so she's really, motivated and passionate about inspiring women to rise, rebuild, and live in their own strength. So Dana Day, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Christy, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tell me, Dana, how did you get into building things?
I hired a bad builder.
Isn't that how it always goes? Like our pain points in life then sometimes lead us to our calling, okay? Or just
It
whatever
just
we end up
did.
doing in life. Yeah.
It just did, yeah. He was bad, and other families were moving in, and they were all complaining about their builder, and while I was building the house, we were way over budget, way over time, and I didn't know what to do. The only thing I knew what to do was to get a laptop and a chair and go in there and sit and work from the house and literally work with the subs and the superintendent to try to keep the ball moving. And I fell in love with it. And so when I heard complaints about other builders, I'm like, there's a niche here. And so I went to the bank and I was like, how can I become a builder? And here we are.
Okay. Well, and what did the bank say to you? They're like, just sign here, you do this, or what was their kind of
So I invested with another builder. It was a new neighborhood. And so he was building two houses up front to sell. And so at that point in time, builders were making a sweet dollar. And so I took the money and I took it to the bank. I was like, how do I become a builder? And what they did, they put the money into a CD as collateral. And then they gave me a spec loan to build a house. And so I sold it. I built it and sold it within 6 months. And they gave me another loan. And eventually, after a couple of years, I didn't need the bank's loan anymore. Custom clients came to me with their own financing. That's how I started. And I literally would ask subs, like, teach me, what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? Instead of this way. And I didn't realize how I'm very dyslexic. And I did not realize that I'm an out of the box thinker.
Okay.
I think out of the box. I love challenges. If a sub comes up to me and says, "We can't do it like this," it just there's no way. I love being able to go and look at all the different dimensions, look at all the different challenges, and being able to find a solution. One, I feel like that is one of my biggest assets in building is being able to solve problems like that.
Okay, so did any of your neighbors at this point in time when you were, like, building your own place be like, "Come on over, can you help make sure that this gets done in a timely manner?"
Not at that time because I wasn't even,
Okay.
I wasn't even
They didn't know
anything yet.
you were over there really trying to get the whole thing continuing to stay on the timeline, but it sounds like it
Yeah,
didn't,
I
right?
was a mortgage loan officer at the time.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So I was working, and I did a lot of construction loans. So I was very involved in construction already.
Okay.
So, I was already part of the Home Builders Association. So I was able to, pull from subs from that organization as well. And, I would just tell them, "Teach me," because here in Oklahoma, you don't have to have a general contractor's license. All my
Okay.
subs do. My electrician, plumber, HVAC, they all have to have their license. So really, truly, anybody can become a builder in the state of
So it's kinda like
Oklahoma.
the Wild Wild West, like,
Kinda
there's
like the
no
wild,
type
wild west.
of any
Tell you what,
governing board or any type of licensing board that's gonna say, if you mess up somebody's home because you're the general contractor and you're responsible for contracting all this, there's really actually no, I guess, ways to hold them accountable except
if
for legally.
if they've done something structurally wrong, there
Mm,
is, of course. There
but
you
if you
I
didn't
mean,
like the way that they put, like, I don't know, a shower door in.
yeah. I mean, and I hear the horror stories all the time. "Oh, I paid him half up front, and now he's gone." They've
Yeah.
left with my money, or they've done the demo, and now they've left my house all messed up and torn up, and I don't have any money, and it's gone. I've had to clean up so many messes. So, what I tell people is your biggest investment of your life usually is your home, and you have to protect your money and your investment. So, when you go to hire a builder, really dig deep into who they are. Get references from past clients, not just 5 years ago, yesterday, 2 years ago. Just really do your due diligence. Make sure that everybody has their workers' comp liability insurance. Make sure that make sure that they're fully covered with all the insurances and, talk to clients, even people that they're building with right now. See, are they on the job site? Is the job site clean? Is it
Have they been showing up,
Do your
like,
due
at a
diligence.
consistent basis? Yeah, yeah. Well,
It's amazing how many people don't.
well, and listen, I can attest to this. Now, luckily, I'll be honest with you, Dana, I haven't done a lot of like remodeling or construction type projects, but I have done a few renovation projects where I have had somebody who is more of he's a builder, but he's excellent. He does renovations. And I'll be honest with you, he was so good that I'm like, every time that I'm ready to do something else, I'm like, please, please come. Because I've heard the horror stories from my friends
Yeah,
that have, started a project with somebody and then they don't show up. Or like you said, I've paid them money, but they're not doing the quality of work that they had said that they could do. I also think that some people have skills that they say that they have, and then you come to find out that they don't. And so
yeah,
I think it can be really challenging. Well, and with you kind of going into a more, I'm assuming is still a pretty male dominated field,
it
builders
is.
and contractors. Yeah. What are some of the challenges that you have faced in pursuing a, career and now building things?
It was worse 20 years ago.
Okay.
I would have a house in the parade of homes, and that's where several hundred people would come through the home. There are people who are looking to buy, they just want to see the trends, but they would ask me, "Okay, who's the builder? Who would I need to talk to?" I'm like, "I'm the builder." And they'd be like, "No, you're the realtor or the designer." And I'm like, "No." And they would say, "Your husband." I'm like, "No, he's a financial advisor, stockbroker. I'm a builder. I'm the builder." And so what I learned is actions speak louder than words. So what I would do, I'd say, "Let me give you a tour of the home." And by showing them and explaining the details of the home, by the end of the tour, they were like, "Okay, you're the builder." You know? So I had to learn that, actions sometimes speak louder than words. And people have a hard time believing still to this day that I'm a woman builder.
Well, and what are some other things? I know before we recorded, there's also been some things that maybe you've had that are challenges, not only just convincing the general public that, hey, this is what I do, or hey, this is why you should trust me in this role, which is an interesting. I wonder how that's been throughout the years, being able to where people that might not have had an awareness for you before, but maybe were seeking out your services, right?
Yeah.
How that worked. But what other obstacles have came your way?
Other than like the biggest one is them just not believing me.
Okay.
The second one I've been harassed many of times in the field, only by one sub, but it's crazy how you owe me a kiss, or you owe me this because I'm a woman builder. And it's like, I don't owe you a dang thing, you know, you work for me. But one of the things, Christy, I had to learn about is speaking to men, speaking to them is I had to form, and I'm talking about with my subs, if something went wrong, mistakes happen. Things go wrong all the time. I make mistakes as well. Everybody makes mistakes. That's not the problem. For me, a good sub is somebody who says, okay, I made that mistake. I'm going to fix it. And it's on their dime. It's when they don't do that and they feel like they can make the mistakes and no one's going to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And I just do. I've heard men builders yell and scream at their subs. If I could not do that. If I did that,
Yeah.
they would pack up and leave and they would quit. I can't talk to a man the same way. I have to be very careful with my words. I have to say, maybe next time we do it this way. Or, I just not sure about how that is looking. Maybe let's do it again this way. Or there's only been a few times where I've lost my cool,
Yeah.
and I can literally count on my hand how many times, and I remember probably exactly which ones they were, because I can't do that. I have to be careful with my words,
Yeah. So
and
it's
I
another
would say
challenge.
it's a huge challenge. It is a huge, huge challenge. Men are big and strong and, but truly inside, a lot of them are the most tender teddy bears and gentle souls that they are really trying to impress and do the best work they can for me.
Yeah.
And so I have to be careful not to show them any disappointment, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it is more challenging as I'm thinking about when you were talking about how you've encountered like maybe people that are more males in the builder space, like maybe yelling at we've talked about this a little bit even in my own team, right? Because I'm actually in a female dominated field and I have a very strong female team. Okay. So it's a lot different, right? And one of the
Yes.
challenges is more males coming into the field because it is more of a female dominated type of space. But it is really interesting the dynamics that you just have to consider with anybody that you're interacting with. But I remember I went to this entrepreneurial retreat one time just to learn about how to do business a little bit better. And, it was a very pretty good mix of men and women. I think they actually did a very good job of having, a mix of entrepreneurs from the men's side and the female side. But I remember one of the guys that was in a more male-dominated industry, he walked out of, like, our little processing group, and we were all doing, like, some reflection stuff sitting outside, and all of a sudden, he probably had no clue that I was observing him, okay? He starts yelling and cursing on the phone about, "Why you didn't do this thing that way, and you should we talked about this," and I'm like I was a little shell shocked, okay, because I'm, again, in a completely different type of field where and I'm a therapist by trade, Dana. So, we
Yeah.
are talking about feelings, we're
Yeah.
understanding. If you get emotionally dysregulated, then that is a problem. And it doesn't mean that you can't get that way because everybody's human, right? I mean, So if I get
Oh, trust
upset and
me.
I have a
I
bad
leave a
day,
situation I leave a situation I'm boiling on the inside. Sometimes there's even some tears and some cuss words, but I can't show it.
that's right, that's right. So you're being a little bit more neutral, but then all of a sudden I'm hearing and then I'm thinking to myself, "Does this guy still have people that work for him?" Like, because I'm pretty sure if you talk to me like that, I would, like, be like, "Sir, you can take this job and put it somewhere that's not,
Right,
you know."
right.
You know what I mean? But I had to step back and remind myself that again, sometimes we do things in life because it's the way that things done. So I don't know his story, I don't know his team story. I don't know if that in their industry that just seems to be acceptable in my mind and not, but whatever. But it was a difference that I observed in how interactions happened. So it sounds like for you, one of the challenges of pushing into maybe an industry, and like you said, it's probably gotten better than 20 years ago, but that 20 years ago, people weren't expecting a female to show up on a job site, or at least it was the exception, not the norm. And, or at least they're showing up in the job site of the capacity of somebody who's a general contractor. Whereas nowadays it may be a little bit different. And who knows, you might even have female subcontractors. I don't know if you do.
A couple.
A couple. So, it's a little bit different as individuals are merging into different, whatever it's male or female dominated type of industries. And some of those gender norms are being kind of broke down. But it still poses a challenge when society expects a certain person or a certain gender to be a
Yeah,
certain role.
yeah,
And it sounds like through that experience too, you've had to navigate how do I best communicate or help the team members that are coming alongside of me to get this
yep,
build finished. How do I motivate them, talk to them, give
yep,
them feedback in a way that's
y
helpful and
mhm.
allows them to fulfill the vision of what we're trying to build here?
And Christy, let me tell you about I don't wanna just say the negative. By doing that and speaking with to them, with care and love and just caring, my subs, they treat me like a sister, I mean, or a family member. They would have my back in any situation I know that they've had in the past. If somebody else is saying something or they just are very,
Yeah,
very
it sounds like it's a
protective over
reciprocal.
me now because
Yeah.
and you know what? We all grew up with, you get more out of honey than vinegar, right?
Yeah.
That's that's the golden rule for me is be kind and considerate and good things will follow.
Yeah. Well, and Dana, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I'd meet one single person that says, "Oh no, I don't want to be treated I don't want to be treated respectfully." I'm saying
Yeah,
that sarcastically. Like, I
right.
mean, every one of us wants to be able to, in my mind, feel respect and also feel appreciation, but also consideration, just as a human being. And so, I hear what you're saying because I think when you treat people a certain way
Yep.
then it is gonna be that reciprocal, and I think that, again, a lot of times what I've learned in my role in my world is that, many times we're walking around and projecting things on people that ain't even about
All the
them,
time.
you know what I
All
mean?
the time.
It's about the person
All the
projecting it, and
time.
so it sounds like to me that as you've navigated this field, one of the things that you've had to do is learn how to not take some of those things that's being projected at you and being like, "Okay, if you wanna say that or act that way, that's fine. Just do it over there. That's not
Yep.
here."
Yep. And I work I will actually fire a sub that has bad energy.
Yeah,
If they don't come with a positive energy because it affects the build of the house. It
yeah.
sounds wild,
It
but
probably
you
puts
have
some bad
one bad
juju in that
apple.
house too. I wouldn't want no bad
It
juju in
is.
my house that I'm gonna be living
It
in, okay?
exactly, exactly, but your my team members, they all have to have good positive energy, and the thing of it is, Christy, I'm gonna say it again, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's how you deal with it, and that's what I tell my subs.
Yeah.
"It's okay you made a mistake. It's okay. Let's just fix it.
Well, we were
It's
just having
okay."
this conversation with a girl on my team. We were talking about the fact that, like, everybody we said this exact conversation today, Dana, so you must have been listening in or ear hustling or something. But we said this, we said everybody makes mistakes. We're all gonna have a bad day. And so for you
Mhm.
listeners,
Yeah.
you're going to have a bad day. You're not going to feel like doing whatever it is that you do or show up to work or deal with that family member or whatever. I mean, we're all going to have our stuff and we're all going to make mistakes. Things are going to
Yep.
fail miserably or they might just fail a little bit. I mean, nothing ends up being perfect. But it is how when you make that mistake or you react in that way that you weren't proud of, or you did that thing that you shouldn't have done, or you tried to do this one thing and it did not have the outcome that you wanted or somebody else was expecting you to have. I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's how do you own it and how do you just take ownership of it? And I feel like when people aren't able to take ownership of things, then really they're a victim to their circumstances. But if you take
That's
ownership, you can actually do something about it. And I think, it's a hard thing to be able to say, like, sure, this person may have done this thing that affected me to have this outcome. Let's say I was building something and an electrician came and put something next to the plumbing. I mean, that probably wouldn't happen that often, but it may happen. I don't know, Dana. But they may have affected my outcome that I'm trying to produce for this build, right? But it's still your responsibility to say, I should have asked a question. I should have brought it to my general contractor to ask, is this exactly what we're supposed to be doing? So there's some point along the way that you can take ownership for some of it, even though it might not be all your thing.
right. Right.
Has that situation happened? Somebody put an electric next to the water?
On purpose, though.
Well, Dana, what would you say or what advice would you give to women who are considering maybe, entering a more male dominated workplace or maybe even also men entering a female dominated workplace? Like, what advice would you give to people that are trying to break through what I would consider traditional societal norms and expectations and roles?
That's a great question. One of the things that I did early on is I had a business coach. And the business coach was the one who kind of taught me the differences between how a man thinks and a woman thinks. Men think differently than women. They just do. We all know this. So you have to approach them differently. So what I'm saying is if you're going to get into a field that's opposite of your sex that's dominated, learn about the other sex. Learn about how they feel and how they think. And maybe your question is instead of saying, "Damn it, you got that wrong," maybe say, "Hey, next time," and change the tone of your voice. Next time, maybe we can try it this way. Let me show you a picture. Even show them examples of something. Really research the differences. I would say, and that's kind of what I did, and that helped me a lot.
Yeah, so it sounds like even like and what I'm hearing you say is whether it's you're going into business or whether you're going into a different field, maybe get some coaching, consulting, or
Yeah,
I also give shameless plugs to therapy around here. But get something that'll help you be understanding of what is going to be the most effective communication for the person that you are working with. And I
right.
would agree with that with anything because, effective communication is hard and everybody definitely hears and receives things in different
Yep.
ways. You could say one thing, they hear a whole different other thing. And so I think in any leadership role, kind of what you're alluding to is let's make sure that you maybe have an understanding of how somebody would best receive information. And I'm sure you've had to learn how to not take things personally too, Dana.
That was my next thing, Christy. That was my next thing. We're all reading the book, let them.
Oh my gosh, my
But
coach
that
today just told me to read it, and so I ordered it today, and I have not read it yet, but for those of y'all listening, it's Let Them by Mel Robbins. I have heard great things about it, but I actually just ordered it today on Amazon.
so my business coach back in the day, he had a theory very much like hers, but it's a little bit different. It's called Grantham Bean. And Grantham Bean means if somebody has no empathy and they do something to you that has no empathy, they react to something, and you expect them to feel a certain way that they're not capable of even doing, that is on you. You got to grant them being. You got to allow them to be who they are and not take it personally. And that is a hard concept to grasp. Grant them being. And that took me a long time, but I tell you that is been a life lesson that was amazing for me.
Yeah. Have you read the lesson book? I'm assuming you've
I
never
haven't
read
yet.
it.
I have it, and I've listened to it on, her podcast and stuff like that. It's the very same concept, but Grantham Bean is just not taking that responsibility,
Yeah.
not I grew up with a mom that doesn't have much empathy. So for me, if I needed a mom that swaddled me or that's just not fair to her,
Yeah.
she doesn't have that personality trait. So I can't ask her to be somebody who she's never going to be.
Yeah.
I have to learn how to make adjustments in my life so that I don't get affected by that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
Men
true.
and being in a male dominated world, being around working with people so closely, because I work with so many different people and clients, grant them being like, if they do something and that's on them, sometimes like I can't take things personally and learning to give grace to yourself. Give
That was
yourself
another
grace.
one. Give yourself grace. Yeah, and you know what? I think this is so hard, and it's interesting that you're about to read the book and, somebody reiterated that book. Who knows? Maybe you listeners will go grab it and tell us what you think too. But, it is so hard, especially when you care about others' opinions. And I think, one of the things I was just talking about with some of my team members actually yesterday is we were talking about the fact that, there's only so many people's opinions that maybe should really matter to you. Okay. And it's really those people that are your main people. So think about who's most important in your life. Like, that if something was to happen, that you would really miss them and that would be really hard for you. And I think there's only a small amount of people, I would say, Dana. I don't know if you would agree with
Yeah,
this, but there's only so many people in my life whose opinions really probably matter to me. But
right.
oftentimes, I'm trying to work on this as it sounds like you have over your lifespan,
Yes.
because I think it's an ongoing journey. Is that sometimes I'll let other people's opinions, reactions, lack of them doing things that as a leader too, that I'm like, "Hey, can we not do this or can we do this?" And, they have their choice to respond in whatever way they want. They have the ability to have their own opinion just like I have mine. But does it
That's
mean I
exactly
have to
right.
take that into account?
No.
No. And that's what the hard thing. That's the hard, I could think, challenge sometimes is not letting other people's opinion dictate the way you live life.
And Christy, one of the things that you and I kind of talked about a little bit beforehand is the way I think when people are like, "You're not the builder," you know, you know, I've had city inspectors say, "Make sure you tell the builder this." I am the builder. I had to tell him 5 times. In the past, I would get upset and mad and want to challenge him and stuff. Nowadays, it's like, and this is what really is good is I don't. I feel sad for him.
Yeah.
So I've changed my way of thinking to feel bad for him not evolving because in today's world, it's a lot more acceptable and it's just your mindset. Sometimes you have to have a shift in your mindset to be able to get through things.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. I think mindset is everything, and I think that sometimes we are able to change our mindset. It changes, I guess, what you're saying is your response. So,
Yeah.
in the past, it sounds like that guy when he would say,
It's in your mind though.
"It is, yeah," and then it helps you treat people and respond to people differently and not get frustrated and agitated. I had this discussion
Exactly
with a
right.
family member of mine. They'd like to drive down the road, and I'll be on the phone with them. Okay. And they'll just be cussing and fussing about whoever just is driving like a slow poke on the road, or maybe they cut them off and they're getting so emotionally reactive. And listen, this is you that I'm talking about right now, please, there's no judgment about this. But what I tell this person often, why are you letting that person pretty much derail half your day and get you angry? We all drive
Mm,
on the road. Some people have better driving skills than others. And I'm not saying that I don't fuss at people that they don't even know I'm fussing at them from time to time. But it's how we are choosing to respond to what they're doing that ultimately affects us, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
And
exactly
so,
right. It's the mindset.
well, Dana, I know we haven't like went to this part of the conversation, but I am curious because I know that one of the things that I've read is about you is that you've had to rebuild your life over several times. And so, tell me a little bit about what has helped you rebuild and redefine what you want your life to look like.
It's funny. I even went to my, counselor yesterday. I'm like, "What is the key characteristics that I kept getting up and going?" What is it inside me that I have there's not much I haven't endured in my life. Starting from being 1 years old with a very rare blood disorder that led to a lot of disabilities, all the way through middle school. And then just over and over, starting over financially, professionally, everything. Like, what is it inside me? What is it that get up, brush my knees off, and I start over, you know? Because so many people ask me, "How did you do that?" And I feel like every time I've had my back up against the wall of either I can choose to live my life like this, or I can choose to rebuild my life and live it the same way I was before, the same like the same quality of home, the same standard of living. I just chose to I'm going to do it again.
So, it sounds like you're resolved to
It's
just like,
resilient.
yeah.
Yeah. But what can I tell people to do is when you're not given a choice, your choice is, yeah, I could become homeless. I could, you know, be just not living life. But to me, that wasn't a choice. Just get up. You're going to fail. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, you are going to fail. Just put it in your mind. You're going to fail. Okay. And so that way, it's so funny. I tell my clients, there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that go wrong. So when this happens, this is just one of those times. That way, you're not getting upset. You'll be like, oh, okay, this is one of those times. Get back up. Let's go. Look how many times Oprah Winfrey. I mean, she is a golden poster for getting back up and doing it and keeping going and going and going after, slam and no, 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 how many times. You keep doing it, you perfect it more and more and more. Just get up and go. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, well, and I think sometimes we do have to just take that first step. You don't have to have just I always like that Martin Luther King Jr. quote that's like, "You don't have to see the whole staircase, you just have to take the first step." And I might
One
not be
step.
saying it the right way, but it's the idea is to take the step, take the first step. And you're right, I think sometimes many times we can live in fear of the failing
Mhm.
or fear of, what if this doesn't have the outcome that I'm hoping for? And I think that is the hardest thing to get past, but it's taking that first step that at least helps you make that movement. And what I've learned along my journey is as long as we're moving, we're going somewhere, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't
Right.
mean that it's not okay to like sit down and sometimes just sit a while and reflect on life and
Yeah.
realign yourself with where you want to go. But I think there's a lot of value in what you're saying is the fact that what's helped you rebuild after, financial things that were unexpected,
Personal,
health
finance.
things that
Yeah.
were unexpected, maybe your personal or professional life, things happening that was
All three.
unexpected. Yeah, all three.
All three.
All the things, is that just, find a way to get back up. And I'll be honest with you, when I'm working with somebody, although I don't really provide therapy anymore, but when I did do that, when I'd find
Mhm.
people in really stuck places where they were feeling depressed or just unable to find the motivation. Part of the technique that we use to help people move through that is called behavior activation. Because what we found is that if you can just take some behavior, whether it be getting up and taking a shower, whether it be
Right.
putting your tennis shoes on and just walking to your mailbox and back. I mean, it can be so small, but for people that are really struggling can be very hard. But just doing that behavior even if you don't feel like it, can sometimes get you to a place where then it becomes, okay, I do actually want to do this again. So you may not want to at the beginning, but it sounds like you maybe didn't want to have to get back up every time. It was like, just get back up, move around.
But Christy also is like, by just don't put the fear in it. Just know that it's an evolution, and it's okay to stumble. It's okay because you're starting over. You're doing it. It's okay to but give yourself grace. But one of the things I did was music was huge. I had a playlist of Katy Perry, Roar, and Miley Cyrus. The Climb, and so I had all
Okay, it
these
wasn't the
songs
wrecking
that
ball. I just want to make
it
sure.
wasn't the Wrecking Ball, no, it was The Climb, and so I had these uplifting, very, very and I played them all the time, and I had sticky notes, very powerful, like, things for me, visualization to say, you know, setting not an unrealistic goal, but setting a goal that it takes a little bit to get to. Not too high, but not low. But set that goal and say, I'm going to make it no matter what. And just when you put that mindset of that goal and you have that on sticky notes of that goal, it's amazing how, if that's your focus, fear's gone. And you know that, okay, you're going to stumble and you're going to stumble, but that's my goal. That's how I did it.
And just kept your eye on the goal.
Just like they say, keep the eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the goal. Just keep your focus on that and have faith. I had a lot of faith. I did a lot of praying.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, faith has gotten me here.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I've always had it figured out, but, I would agree with that, and not that I always do, certain things, like, there's no, like, step 1, step 2, step 3, right? Like, because it's not like I have any rituals that I'm like, "Okay, guys, yes, you should reflect and pray every day, and that's gonna help you get to whatever." No, I just think it's kind of like that trusting of, like, and maybe that is part of the thing too, is reminding yourself, and that goes with the fear, what you're talking about, is being able to remind yourself that, you know, if I've made it this far in life, something told me and I can make it a little bit further. And I just have faith that I don't know what this all means or why this is happening, but it'll all make sense at some point.
It'll all
And
make
maybe
sense.
it won't. Maybe it won't. But I just am gonna
Um,
go in the direction of where I feel like I'm supposed to be headed. And, for me that has not steered me wrong yet in life. It doesn't mean that it hasn't been devoid of there's been challenges, there's been obstacles for sure, that
yeah,
some people might would run from. But,
yeah.
it's just how do you just keep pushing through? And when you do push through, you can get to the other side. And it's just and it may be hard, but just keep pushing.
Give
Yeah.
yourself grace. Keep pushing and have faith.
Yeah. Well, Dana, that might have summarized our show. No, I'm just kidding. But
There you go.
if you did, I'm curious because I like to ask my guests this. If there was a piece of like encouragement or something that you could have given to younger you, and maybe it was the younger you that was entering into the building profession and, trying to learn from those first subcontractors, what are you doing here? How does this work? Things like that. Or it could have been younger you after you got through a personal or professional setback. What is
Yeah,
something that you would want younger you to know, like if you could go talk to them today?
yeah. The same thing I tell the 53-year-old is give yourself grace. Just don't be I'm the hardest person on myself. I am so hard. I beat myself up. I am the hardest person on myself. And I still today have to tell myself, Dana, give yourself grace. That's why I say it so many times. It's because I
Yeah,
have to tell
because it's
myself.
like a
So
constant
if I had to
reminder
go
for you.
back, so if I had to go back to my young self, it would be that, just
Yeah, give yourself grace.
it's
Well,
gonna
and Dana, I don't know about you,
just
but I didn't get no manual when I was dropped off here on a big old ball that's floating in the universe somewhere. Like,
yeah,
nobody gave me I just got dropped off in the family. I cried a little bit, didn't know
yeah,
what life was about, and suddenly at some point I started walking and talking or whatever, but I didn't get a manual to say this is what you should do
no,
when life happens or this is how you should act every day or, you know, and I think sometimes when we remember that we're living a human experience is that we can also be human. And human is messy. It's not
It
like
is
this whole
messy.
linear path that like you should have arrived at this point by this age and life should look like this, right? It's a
There's no dummy book on how to live, right?
that's right. That is so
There's no
true.
dummy manuals. Like it's like if we had a dummy manual on how to raise the perfect child, you
That's
know,
right.
I mean, we would have one,
That's
right?
right.
Hindsight's 2020. That's the other thing. You can't go back.
You
You can
can't
only
go
go
back, but that's why
forward.
you gotta give yourself grace.
That's why you have to give yourself grace.
Yeah. Well, Dana, I so appreciate you coming on the show today. And I just want to acknowledge you for, rebuilding time and time again, whether it be entering into a building profession after that build wasn't working out for you, or whether it's navigating some of the challenges that you found yourself in a male dominated field, or just life challenges where you've had to start over again. But now you also want to help inspire others that they can too
I
rise to
do.
those challenges. So I appreciate you coming on today. But if there is a place where people want to be able to connect with you or find out more about you, where
Yes.
can they find you at?
Dana Day, DANA, Day, Tulsa.com.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure and link that up in the show notes, guys. Y'all go check out Dana. But one thing that I want to leave y'all with today is something that Dana said, and it's something that I'm working on in life. And Mel Robbins would say, let them. But
Let
one of the
them.
things Dana said was, grant them being. And don't forget to give yourself some grace. Until next time.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.